In the far reaches of a silent galaxy, beyond the cracked moons and burning suns, a human vessel hovered over a war-torn world. Once ruled by an aggressive alien race now weakened and scattered, this planet had turned into a quiet battlefield of ashes and broken metal. The wind still carried the smell of burning stone as the humans stepped onto the ground, not as conquerors, but as guardians sent to maintain peace and offer aid. Ray was one of them. A soldier by training, a peacekeeper by duty, and a quiet observer of things far beyond human understanding. He had seen strange planets, stranger beings, but this world still felt different. Not because of its gray skies or broken towers, but because of the strange silence that spoke louder than any war cry. The mission was simple: help the remaining locals rebuild and maintain order. Humans had recently been accepted by the Galactic Union as protectors in crisis zones, and this was their first official posting. Ray and his unit moved through the main square of the ruined city where alien children stared from doorways, unsure whether to trust the men in armor or not. The locals here were tall, fierce-looking, built for combat with their thick skin and golden eyes. They were from a proud warrior species once feared across the stars. Now they walked slow and silent, with their heads bowed. The war had left them shattered inside, and out. Ray walked near a collapsed monument when he noticed her. She stood tall and still, not in fear, not in sorrow, but with purpose. Her armor was old and scratched, but she wore it like a crown. Her eyes fixed on him without blinking. When she stepped forward, even the wind seemed to pause. He expected questions, maybe complaints or requests for supplies. But what she said was none of that. She looked him in the eyes and said with complete calm, "Please, human, let me bear your offspring." Ray stood frozen. He thought maybe something got lost in translation. Maybe her words were meant to mean something else. But her gaze was steady, her voice firm. "I wish to carry your child. Your kind is strong, adaptable, fast to learn, hard to break. My people are fading. But a child between us could be stronger than any warrior this galaxy has ever seen." Behind her, other aliens turned and stared. Some looked shocked. Others whispered. A few turned away in silence, as if they already knew she might do this. Ray blinked, trying to make sense of it. He looked at his team. One of them raised a brow. Another tried to hide a smirk, but Ray saw no humor in this, not in her tone. Not in her face. Not in the quiet tension that now filled the air around them. He asked carefully, "Why me?" She took a step closer. "Because you are not just a human. You are a soldier who fought not to destroy, but to protect. I saw you during the siege. You carried our injured. You stood between a child and falling stone. You are strong, but you are not cruel. That is rare. That is what my people need." Ray had no words. His heart beat faster, not from fear or anger, but from something else he could not name. He had trained for combat, for diplomacy, even for deep space survival. But not for this. Later that day, he sat alone in the mobile command post. His commander had heard about the request and wanted answers. Not just from Ray, but from her. The alien woman arrived calmly. She introduced herself by her clan name. She was not just any soldier. She had once led her people into many battles. Now she was one of the last true warriors of her bloodline. Her name had meaning. Her request had reason. Ray asked, "Is this about saving your bloodline or saving your people?" She said, "Both. If my child lives, it carries two worlds in its bones. It can stand between my people and yours. It can lead. It can survive. You may not see it now, but one child can change. More than a war." The commanders talked in private. Some said it was too risky. Others saw political gain. A few worried it might start a wave of strange unions across planets. But none could deny that this had never happened before. Ray stayed quiet. He thought of the war, the burning sky, the look in her eyes. She was not asking out of weakness. She was offering a bond through strength. That night, he walked alone through the ruins. She waited for him near the old temple stairs, where the stars blinked like curious eyes above them. "You are afraid," she said. "I am unsure," he replied. She tilted her head slightly. "Then listen to the truth inside you, not the orders around you. I offer not a favor. I offer a future." Ray looked at her, at the way her voice held no demand, only belief. No one had ever spoken to him like that, not as a soldier, but as a bridge. He asked her, "What if this changes everything?" She answered, "Then let it." He stood there for a long time, under the silver light of 2 moons, while the galaxy turned in silence. Something had begun, not a war, not a peace treaty. Something older, deeper, maybe even greater than both. A choice that did not belong to governments or armies or species, but to 2 beings. A human and a warrior from a fading world. And whatever happened next, the stars would remember it. Since the day of her request, the air in the base had changed. Soldiers whispered more than they spoke. Eyes followed Ray wherever he went. Reports came. Late. Even the air inside the human camp felt heavy, as if each breath carried questions no one wanted to ask aloud. Ray moved through the corridors like a ghost in his own uniform. His steps were quiet, but his thoughts were loud. The alien woman, once seen as a relic of a warrior past, was now at the center of everything. She continued to walk through the broken city with calm pride. Locals watched her with mixed feelings. Some bowed their heads when she passed. Others turned their faces away, unsure whether to respect her or fear what she had done. A few whispered that she had gone too far, that her bloodline should end with her, that no child should be born from 2 worlds. Ray sat in the mission hall, where the human command met each day. Maps covered the walls. Screens showed reports of border zones and supply drops. Yet today, the conversation was not about safety or diplomacy. It was about him. His commander stood by the window. He did not raise his voice. His words were calm but sharp. "This decision, if taken, might shape more than your life. It could shift how the galaxy views us. We were sent here as peacekeepers, not seed bearers. You must think not only with your heart, but with the weight of our role." Ray did not answer right away. He looked out the same window, past the dust and rubble, past the damaged towers and empty homes. He saw children playing near a broken fountain. A group of aliens laughed as one of them slipped on a stone. That laugh reminded him of home, of Earth, of normal moments in strange places. Later that day, he met the woman again. She stood near the edge of the city, beside a fallen watchtower. The wind lifted her long dark hair as she waited without speaking. Ray asked her what drove her so deeply to this path. She told him stories of her people, how they once ruled, not with fear, but with skill. Their warriors could leap twice their height and track prey by scent alone. They trained from youth to protect their lands, their honor, their name. But the war had changed everything. Newer species came with faster ships and colder minds. Machines replaced warriors. Honor was lost in calculations. Now her people lived as survivors, not leaders. "I do not wish to raise a child who only fights," she said. "I wish to raise one who can lead, who can feel, who can think beyond the sword and shield, and your kind has that gift." Ray listened without speaking. Each word touched something inside him he did not know was waiting. Later that night, protests broke out on the edge of the city. Not large, but loud enough. Alien voices shouted about blood purity and betrayal. They carried flags from older times. Their eyes burned with fear and anger. They did not want change. They wanted the past returned. Human soldiers stood guard, but did not interfere. The command feared any reaction might turn small unrest into violence. Ray watched from a distance as the alien woman walked calmly past the shouting. Some cursed her. Others threw small stones that missed their mark. She did not flinch. Her back stayed straight. Her steps never slowed. Ray approached her after the crowd faded into silence. "They hate you now," he said. She nodded once. "It is. They're right. They fear what they do not understand. But fear does not stop truth. Fear only delays it." He asked her if she felt pain. She said yes. He asked her if she would change her decision. She said no. In the next days, news spread beyond the planet. Other alien species sent messages. Some were curious. Some offered support. A few sent warnings. They feared this idea might spread. If humans began to mix with other races, what would the future hold? Would old powers fade? Would new ones rise? Would the balance fall? Back in the base, Ray faced questions from diplomats and scientists. They asked him if he had agreed. He said no, not yet. They asked if he believed it was right. He did not answer. One night under the light of the twin moons, Ray and the woman stood at the edge of a cliff outside the city. Below them lay a forest untouched by war. The trees moved like waves in the wind. He asked her, "Why me and not another human?" She looked at him with quiet strength. "Because others see the stars as land to own. You see them as places to protect. You do not speak more than needed. You act when others wait. I chose you not for your strength alone. I chose you for your silence, for your balance, for your respect." For a moment, Ray felt the weight of it all. Not duty, not politics, but possibility. He turned his gaze toward the forest. Somewhere in those trees, life still moved, free of war and fear. Somewhere in that silence, he felt something grow. Not love, not yet, but trust. The next morning, he walked into the central hall and gave his answer, not to his commander, not to the council, but to her. He said yes. And with that one word, the path ahead began to form, uncertain, dangerous but no longer empty. A choice had been made. A future had been set in motion. And nothing would remain the same. The message traveled faster than light. Ray's decision was no longer a private choice between two individuals. It became a signal, a quiet explosion that echoed across systems, far beyond the war-torn planet. Within days, whispers turned to questions. Questions turned into warnings. And then the warnings turned into action. The Galactic Council called for urgent discussions. Their voices were calm on the outside, but their hearts burned with unease. If a human soldier could agree to such a union, others might follow. A wave could begin. One child would not just carry new blood, but new power, mixed strength, mixed minds, and possibly a future where no single race stood alone in control. On distant worlds, leaders met behind sealed doors. Some argued that this kind of unity could bring peace. Others feared it would dissolve ancient roots. They did not want to see the old empires fall into new hands. Not through war, not through violence, but through bloodlines. Through children who did not fit in the boxes history had drawn. Meanwhile, Ray stayed hidden in the outskirts of the city with the alien warrior. The base no longer felt safe. His own people now treated him like a puzzle they could not solve. His former allies gave him cold greetings. Some ignored him completely. He heard rumors that certain officers were preparing to remove him from duty. Quietly, without noise, without report. The alien woman did not show fear. Her mind remained clear. Her focus never shifted. She began preparing for a journey. A long one. To a neutral outpost known across the galaxy as a place for scientific truth. No flags, no borders. Only knowledge. Ray asked her why she wanted to go there. She said the child must begin in truth. Not behind closed doors. Not in secret chambers. The first steps must be seen by minds that seek understanding, not controlled. Ray agreed. He began making plans. Quiet communication. False routes. A small ship stolen from a maintenance yard. They moved fast and left during the dark winds of early morning. The stars above watched without judgment. Their journey took them through dangerous zones. Abandoned routes filled with broken ships and forgotten signals. Once, they stopped on a small moon to refuel. There, they saw signs painted on walls in languages both old and new. Some were blessings. Others were threats. Messages from those who had already heard of them. Ray did not sleep well during these nights. Each sound made his hand move closer to his weapon. He no longer feared battle. He feared betrayal, not from her, but from the growing shadow of those who saw them as enemies of tradition. The alien woman never lost her calm. She meditated each night. She sharpened her focus like a blade. Her voice remained steady, her eyes always searching the stars for answers. After 5 days, they reached the outpost. It stood on a floating rock, a giant lab built into the stone itself. White towers rose from the surface like frozen light. No guards, no weapons, only watchers. Scientists from many races worked there under one rule: protect truth. They entered without welcome. The watchers had already been warned. But science still held power here. Questions still deserved answers. Ray and the warrior were placed under observation. Tests began. Scans of cells. Maps of blood. Each result brought new light. The embryo had formed. It was real. It was stable. It showed signs of growth beyond normal limits. Strong heart, sharp brain activity, unusual energy patterns. Something new had taken shape. One scientist whispered that this was the beginning of a new chapter in evolution. Another called it a risk that should never have been taken. Arguments began to rise even inside the halls of science. Then came the hunters. 2 ships arrived near the outpost without warning. One belonged to a group of alien supremacists. They wore armor with the symbols of old warrior clans. The other ship carried a rogue human faction that believed Earth blood should never mix. Both sides had different flags. But their goal was the same: stop the child. Erase the future it promised. Alarms echoed through the outpost. Walls turned red. Defense shields rose. But the ships were already inside range. Ray grabbed a weapon. The alien warrior stood beside him. They did not wait for permission. They moved together through the halls, passing confused researchers and blinking screens. Attackers landed near the North Tower. Explosions cracked the silent air. Fire spread along the outer walls. Ray led the defense with clear commands. The warrior moved like lightning. Her body danced through chaos with perfect control. Together, they became a force no one could stop. 1 attacker reached the medical chamber. A bullet flew toward the machine holding the embryo. The alien woman threw herself in front without thinking. The bullet struck her arm. Blood spilled. But her feet did not fall. Ray pulled her behind cover and fired back until the corridor cleared. Smoke filled the room. Silence followed. Only the sound of her breath remained. She looked at him and said, "The child lives. That is enough." But Ray shook his head. "You must live too. The child needs both." Doctors rushed in. They treated her wounds. The embryo was unharmed. The attackers were driven out, but more threats would come. The secret was no longer secret. The child was now a target. Ray stood outside the chamber that night. He watched the stars again. Each light reminded him of a world that might love or hate what they had begun. But he did not regret it. He placed his hand on the glass, looking at the small shape growing inside. It did not yet have a name. It did not yet know what it would become. But it was alive. And it was his. The galaxy had changed. Not through war, not through power, but through one choice made between 2 beings. The real battle was only beginning. The days inside the outpost became sharp and tense. The calm halls of Science had turned into quiet shadows of war. No one spoke loudly anymore. Footsteps were light. Doors were locked from inside. Even machines began to hum with less energy, as if they too sensed the weight pressing down on the air. Ray stayed close to the warrior as she healed. Her wound, though deep, did not slow her much. She trained in the mornings, walked in the evenings, and stood at the child's chamber at night. Each breath she took was strong. Each word she spoke carried more fire than before. The embryo, now several weeks old, grew faster than any child the doctors had studied before. It showed signs of rapid cellular learning. Muscles were forming earlier, nerves were connecting quicker. Brain waves were active even in rest. One scientist called it a spark of evolution. Another called it a storm. Ray watched the readings daily. He had never been a father. He had never even thought about that life. But now, each image on the screen felt like a silent promise. This was more than a child. This was a future shaped by two broken worlds that had once only known war. Outside the lab, trouble kept growing. Rumors spread fast across nearby systems. Groups gathered. Some praised what Ray and the warrior had done. They saw hope. They saw a new way forward. But others saw danger. They feared that if this child survived and grew strong, more would follow. And slowly the old bloodlines would vanish. Messages reached the outpost. Some offered protection. Others gave threats. Some spoke of balance. Others shouted of extinction. The council refused to take sides. It wanted time. They wanted silence. But time had already slipped away. One evening, as the twin suns faded into the edge of the black sky, an unknown ship appeared in orbit. No signals, no banners, no warning. It moved like a shadow between stars. Outpost scanners failed to read its source. Defense systems began to blink with red lights. Inside, the scientists rushed. They moved files, protected data, sent messages. For help, Ray prepared weapons. The warrior pulled on her armor. Her wound was not fully closed, but she ignored the pain. Her eyes were cold. Her hands did not shake. An alarm screamed through the walls. A breach. Unknown forces had landed. They were fast, clean, silent, not an army, a team of elites. Sent to erase, not capture. Ray and the warrior moved through the long white corridors. Blasts echoed behind metal walls. Sparks flew from broken lights. The scent of burning metal filled the air. They moved as one. No time for fear, only forward. Only protect. Inside the growth chamber, the child rested within a sealed pod. It pulsed with light and warmth. A nurse stood guard with shaking hands. She had never trained for this. She looked at Ray with wide eyes. Will they take it? She asked. Ray shook his head. They won't touch it. The attackers reached the chamber's outer door. A blast cracked the seal. Smoke entered. Lights failed. The first figure stepped through with a silent weapon raised. The warrior rushed forward. No fear, no doubt. Her blade flashed through the air. The first attacker dropped. The second fired but missed. Ray followed with clean shots. One by one the attackers fell. But they kept coming. An explosion shook the tower. Fire reached the walls. A support beam cracked. Part of the ceiling fell. The warrior turned and saw Ray pinned under metal. She ran back, lifted the beam with blood running from her arms. Ray pushed free with a groan. You should have kept fighting, he said. I fight for you, she answered. And for our child. More figures appeared. A grenade rolled into the room. Without a thought, the warrior kicked it toward the hall. It exploded outside. Heat filled the space. Ray looked at her. Her skin was burned in places, her armor broken. But her eyes still burned. The attackers began to fall back. Reinforcements had arrived. Drones flew in from the far labs. Defense bots activated. Ray fell to his knees beside the pod. He looked through the glass. The child inside was still untouched. Peaceful, safe. A doctor ran in and checked the systems. It's alive, she said. Stable, no damage. Ray placed his hand on the glass. You're safe now, he whispered. The warrior sat near the wall, breathing hard. Her body shook from blood loss. Yet she smiled. Just slightly, we did it, she said. Ray moved to her. He held her hand. It was warm, but weaker now. You need help, he said. She nodded. Later. First, stay with him. He's more than both of us. Doctors worked around them. Machines beeped. Flames were gone. Silence returned. But it was not the same silence. This one was deeper. It carried something with it. The attackers were gone. Their mission failed. But their message was clear. The child had become more than a symbol. It had become a line drawn between two futures. One that clung to the past. One that reached toward something new. Ray knew more would come. But he also knew something else. He was not just a soldier anymore. Not just a man carrying orders. He was now part of something far greater than battle or duty. He was part of a life that had chosen to be born in fire and raised in strength. And he would protect it. No matter the cost. The sky over the outpost was clear for the first time in many weeks. No unknown ships. No warning signals. No sounds of weapons. Only the quiet hum of energy flowing through repaired systems and the soft wind moving across the surface of the floating rock. The scientists worked in silence now, but the silence was not fear. It was focus, purpose. Something had shifted after the attack. The child had survived. The embryo was no longer a mystery inside a pod. It had grown stronger each day. Its body took shape faster than any known life form. Muscles developed with clean patterns. The brain responded to signals before birth. Its heart pulsed with unusual force. Even inside the protective chamber, the child moved with a presence that made machines pause and minds wonder. Ray stood near the chamber each morning. He no longer wore full armor. His weapon stayed holstered unless needed. His hands were free now. Free to protect not just through battle, but through care. He had become something different. Not softer. Not weaker. Just more complete. The warrior rested in the healing wing. Her wounds had begun to fade. Her body recovered faster than expected. Doctors said it was her inner strength, but Ray knew it was something deeper. She had not fought to survive. She had fought to ensure something else could live. That purpose gave her power no medicine could match. Leaders from distant systems began to send observers. Not soldiers, not spies, but thinkers, scientists, historians, even poets came. They wanted to witness, to understand. This was no longer about one child. This was about what came next. On the 12th rotation since the attack, the child was born. No alarms, no chaos. Only soft lights and calm voices. It was born in peace, though made in fire. The child had human skin tone, but its eyes were golden. Like its mother's, its heartbeat was strong. Its body light but dense. It cried once, loud and clear, then looked around the room with strange stillness, as if it knew where it was. As if it had been waiting. Ray held the child in his arms. His fingers trembled slightly, but his grip was sure. He looked into the face of this small life and saw nothing he could explain. He only knew that the galaxy had changed. The warrior watched from her bed. Her face held no tears, but her eyes were full. She reached out her hand, and Ray placed the child into her arms. For a moment, everything paused. No voice spoke. No machine moved. No door opened. Only the three of them in that room. Human, warrior, child. Word spread quickly. Images were sent across secure channels. Galaxies watched. Some celebrated. Others prepared. The Galactic Council held a long meeting. After 3 days, they made a public statement. They would not interfere. They would not control. They would observe. The child was to be protected, not as a weapon, not as an experiment, but as a living symbol of a new path. Rey and the warrior chose not to return to Earth or to the homeworld of her people. Instead, they asked for a place of quiet, a green planet with no armies, a small station built near calm rivers and wide open skies. The council agreed. They left the outpost under escort, not in chains, but with honor. A small group of ships followed them to the edge of their new world. Once there, the sky opened wide. Mountains stretched across the horizon. The wind smelled of wild trees and clean soil. They built a home with their hands, not large, not complex, just enough to live. Rey planted crops. The warrior trained under open skies. The child crawled on warm grass and reached for birds in the air. Years passed slowly. The child grew, faster than expected. It spoke early, moved early, thought with strange rhythm. It asked questions no one taught it. It saw patterns in light. It learned languages without being shown. But it also laughed. It played. It hugged its parents. It loved stories and music. It was not just strong. It was human too. Other families visited. Some alien, some human, some mixed. Quiet groups who had seen the change and wanted to understand it. A few stayed. A village grew around them. A small gathering of those who believed in new beginnings. Far away, the galaxy continued its endless turning. Wars still burned in corners. Greed still whispered through politics. But something had shifted. A balance had tilted. Not from force. Not from fear. But from a child born in silence. Rey sat on a hill one night beside the warrior. The stars above were brighter than ever. He looked at her and asked, "Do you think he will change the galaxy?" She answered, "He already has." He asked, "And what comes after?" She replied, "Whatever he chooses." They sat there for a long time without words. The stars watched. The wind moved. And below them, the child dreamed. Not of war, not of power, but of skies wide enough for all. The end.